start to put tension on my string drawback, I was like, okay, I'm gonna smoke.
It's him. You can look at the horns when he's dead. I'm in the zone. Let the arrow go is perfect.
So when they lose their front shoulders, you start, that's how you know they're smoking.
Went about 5-10 more yards. We probably went 20 yards total. Kept them, we tried getting back up. And I saw him pull up.
We rushed 14 rods that night. We got like 166 and something like that. And then the next day we came out to 163 even.
You're listening to the White Cat Outdoors podcast, bringing you to the table where we talk about the outdoors.
It is episode 75 of the White Cat Outdoors podcast. What's going on, everybody? Nick and Tom are both here in studio hanging out.
Oh, how's everybody doing?
Glad to be in the studio hanging out.
Oh, yeah. We love it. And we've been talking turkeys last several weeks, and last week we talked a little bit about fishing, but food plots are going in. It's food plot season, so we're starting to get whitetails on the brain. They're starting to grow some antlers, and you guys know that we're big-time mobile hunters, and we had a request from one of our Patreons.
Ben Gordonier.
Yes. So...
Speaking of Patreon members, Frank.
Speaking of, before we get too far,
we have another spot filled in the old Patreon giveaway, Mr. Jordan Rockwood. So
sounds like a great guy.
I've heard really good things.
Heard he grows a mullet.
A mean mullet.
Even better.
So
Probably drinks Busch Light.
Mm-hmm. I heard he's got Croc spurs too.
Sounds like a guy we want as a Patreon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Solid dude.
Can't thank you enough, Jordan.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. And a few more spots get filled, we'll be drawing a name for the $500 mobile stand giveaway.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually perfect that we can talk about giving a mobile setup away while this podcast goes on, because Ben here requested...
Our first Patreon.
Yeah, our first Patreon. So it's kind of special to us.
Yeah.
Ben suggested that he wants us to break down... the difference in like pros and cons between like saddle hunting and hang-ons for mobile use. Tom suggested we throw in some climber talk in there, which I agree because it kind of fits
Definitely
that
fits.
realm. So I guess I will play saddle advocate today because I'm the only one with any experience with a saddle. And then I guess at the end I can, because I've done both, actually all three, I can kind of let everybody know where I lie, but I will play a lot of devil's advocate today just to bring up the points of saddle hunting to consider against lock-ons. So I think all of us started with climbers when we
definitely
talk mobile, so I guess we'll start.
Well, I think it's mostly because that was basically your only option for mobile hunting for a long time. You had the other options, but
I guess we didn't have access to it or really knew
and they
much.
weren't really effective for
They
the
weren't
most
as
part.
practical.
Yeah.
It was essentially hauling a hang-on that would normally be a permanent stand into the woods with you with your ladder or tree pegs or whatever you want to call it.
Lone Wolf's been around for a long time, but...
Yeah, but they were mostly doing climbers before.
Oh, their Lock-Ons is what they started. Well, the Lock-Ons...
They weren't very mobile, though, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, their first Lock-Ons...
Yeah, now they're so packable where...
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
It wasn't like...
It wasn't as convenient.
And even like the hanging system on the first original Lone Wolves weren't as nice. Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, it wasn't like today where you have these 5-pound stands. You had basically your permanent lock-on stand that if you felt like carrying it in and out every time, go for it.
It's doable.
But, yeah, not to say you couldn't do it, but it wasn't convenient like it is today, how you have those super packable stands and everybody's striving to have the lightest stand in the industry, and it's a lot more practical now to be mobile with that
I love the
type
mobile
of
market
setup.
right now.
Me too.
It's awesome.
All about it.
Is that what they call it? The
No,
mobile
that's just
market?
what I'm calling it. Just because like mobile hunting, even though we've been like, I put this in quotations, mobile hunting since we started hunting, at 10, 11 years old. I think my first tree stand was a climber. That was my Uncle John, or it's actually my dad's Uncle John. He's about my grandpa's age. Gave me an old, I honestly don't even know the brand of climber. It was
one of those big, heavy, loud pieces of shit.
It was very bulky, and it had like 1-inch webbing straps for the backpack straps. And I rocked that thing for years.
Mm-hmm.
I literally wore out the metal grates on the stand. Like, they were literally like ocean waves.
Nice.
But anyway, so I guess we'll start with what we liked about climbers, and maybe then we can work into why we have all since moved out of climbers. So, Tom, I'll let you go. I guess you were the last one to convert out of your climber for bow hunting.
For bow hunting.
So if you want to kind of break down what you loved about climbers so much that made you hold on for so long.
The one thing that I really love about climbers, especially I always use the Summit Titan, and that the comfort that you have in a Summit is unlike any other. And I know that
now you can focus.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure all you guys know this too, but the more time you spend in the woods, the greater chance you have at getting a deer.
Yeah.
And if you're in this uncomfortable ass tree stand, come 8:30, you're gonna be like, yeah, this is no fun anymore. I've had enough. But in the Summit archery season, I'd sit till 11 o'clock, climb down, and I'm back in the woods at 2 o'clock. Just take a quick lunch break, and in the rut, it's no problem to sit all day long. And I've noticed the past 3 or 4 years, some of the greatest action I have is between 9 o'clock and noon, where I used to only hunt till like 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, and then
not seeing anything.
My ass was numb from sitting on a uncomfortable seat, and I'm like, yeah, I'm getting out of here. But the climber, it cradles you. You could sit there all day, take a nap in it.
Yeah, I can also attest to like the comfortability of a climber. I don't think there is another like elevated tree stand that's as comfortable as a climber. They're just so damn comfortable.
I honestly I have a Summit, and I have never used they have the big what do you call those
hammock style?
Yeah,
almost.
It's like a hammock seat.
A floating seat.
Yeah. I have never used it. I sit on.
You're missing out.
I sit on the shooting rail. If I sit, I usually have it up a little higher, so I'm not even sitting. I just kind of
more of a lean.
Because I stand almost all the time. I almost never sit down in the stand, and if I do, it's leaning. So I do even sit, leaning on the rail was super comfortable. So that I loved my climbers. I used a couple different types of climbers. I used a Summit and an XOP hand climber for a long time. So.
Yeah, those XOP hand climbers, I think they're dog water. I had one bad experience.
No, that you had a sit and climb. It's different.
Oh.
Yeah, it's totally different. But again,
either way,
the hand climbers they're a tiny little seat, but I don't.
Oh yeah, I know.
I don't care about that because I can climb effectively with it, and I don't sit down, so it didn't bother me at all. And I liked those. I switched away from my Summit for the most part in archery season because of the packability of it. Even though Summits are really comfortable, I didn't like how
they're heavy as hell.
Yeah,
and bulky.
They're real bulky when you walk through the woods. They catch on stuff over your head. They're just not.
It's like a moose walking through. It's ridiculous.
They're not as packable or comfortable to carry, or if you have a long walk, you don't want to be carrying 35 pounds on your back the whole way.
Yeah. The other thing I really liked about climbers is I don't think you can get up a tree faster.
No, you definitely can.
Yeah.
If you're in a hurry and you know where you want to be, because I usually scout out my climber trees.
Yeah, I do too, just because climbers, that's one of the other cons is safely, it's very difficult to climb anything but telephone pole style trees.
Yeah.
So
I always
try to disconnected and went, but we can't.
Yeah, we've all done some unsafe stuff with our climbers, and but yeah, I always try to go in beforehand and find where I want to be with a climber, or if I have another stand somewhere and I'm seeing something somewhere else, I walk over. I'm like, okay, I can get a climber in this tree to scope this area out, and then it's just if you're short on time, you can run in there, get up the tree in 2 minutes.
Oh, it's wicked fast. I love that part of it. We actually at the big piece we hunt. There's actually a lot of tree stands that are literally just climbers that we leave at the bottom of the tree, and when you get there, you climb up.
Yeah.
Which I think that's stupid, because then the mice just get into them and chew them all to hell. And
yeah, I do like it for the comfort. of that when it's not chewed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like having that comfort. The only thing.
But at that point, you might as well have a ladder stand there because you can get wicked comfortable ladder stands.
Yeah, it's true. They have a lot of those like hammock styles. Not quite hammock style, but the mesh seats, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, you're sitting in that, you know, cushiony seat. It's absorbing all of your scent. And then you bring it down to the bottom of the tree, which is level with a deer's nose, and you leave it there in the woods.
That's
Maybe they get used to it.
Never really thought about that, but.
Or maybe they're like, oh, shit.
You better get the hell out of here.
Humans are in this area.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I guess the last thing, probably the two main things that got me out of the climber and went to a lock-on was the versatility for like getting into trees, and I'm a sitter. I like to sit most of the hunt. I feel like that's how I stay the most still. And sitting in a climber, I think, hinders your shots with that bar. Now,
totally
your
agree.
hand climber is a little different because it
You don't have a bar.
It sits like a lock-on.
Yeah.
But your summits and some of your older like gorillas and those other like your basically summit style climbers, they're not really designed for bow hunting, in my opinion. The XOP and the Lone Wolf hand climbers, now their bar drops down. And that, I think, can be used for bow hunting, but I still think it hinders you to some degree because you still have the angled bar that goes around the back of the tree. So those were the two things for me that made me
sitting
move off the climber.
Get harder.
I'll tell you
I was
what.
going to say, Tom's got a personal experience that.
Why I don't want to use my climber in bow season anymore. So, this was last year. Had a nice 8-point, probably 115, 120-inch 8. Come working down this hedgerow, crossed the swamp, and came like 20 yards behind me. Perfect broadside slam dunk shot. Would have smoked him. So I'm watching this buck come. I'm like, all right, he's going to come up this little knob. He's going to be right there. I go to draw back, and how those summit works is like Nick said, there's those two angled bars that come up and around the back of the tree. And I went to draw my bow back, and my string was hitting on the bar. I could only get like a half draw.
So you put your bow over the side of the shooting rail.
Yeah,
when you went
because
to draw back,
your
string was hitting the angle. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to paint the mental picture here.
Yeah, because I was spun 180 facing the tree, and I used the tree as cover. Went to draw back off the side of the tree, and couldn't get the full draw on this thing. And so now this buck, of course, just standing there grazing for like 5 minutes. And he has to come probably
like
now.
Third draw.
Yeah, just sitting there trembling.
Full 70 pounds.
Yeah, holding 70.
Yeah, and for me to clear it, now he's got to walk probably another 10 yards to where I can get off to the side of the tree stand to get my shot. And doesn't he turn his ass toward me and just walk straight away? I'm like, that sucks.
Yeah.
I think, Tom, that after he came in midday before we went, because this was like, I think, closer to the rut, wasn't it? Or like end of October.
Yeah, it was end of October.
And anyway, we came in real quick up to the barn. I think had lunch real quick before we went back out. And I think Tom right then and there was like, I'm done using a climber in bow season. He's like, that's a rifle stand from here on out. And it was for that reason right there. Just it's tough. I think if you get surprised, it can be tough to make a shot out of a climber.
And that's why I'm a stander for the most part, because I have been surprised while sitting before. And depending on what kind of stand you're in, and in the past before we started getting into like the Lone Wolves and different mobile setups, when you're sitting in a bulkier stand, whether it be a ladder or a different kind of climber, you can't get up and you can't sit effectively and shoot. And to get up, you have a lot of movement to get to where you can shoot.
Yeah.
See,
So-
I practice shooting, sitting, straight ahead and off to my
9
left.
o'clock.
Dominant side.
Yeah.
I can shoot almost to probably, I would say, like 7 or 8 while sitting down. Like with minimal movement. But
Yeah.
anything
I mean, I
past
can-
like 1, it's very
Yeah,
difficult
it's
to
on
make
your
that.
on the opposite
That's what I'm saying.
side.
If you're sitting there like 1 o'clock, very doable. 2 o'clock starts getting really hard. And forget 3 o'clock.
Because then you start pulling the bow away from your face. and-
Yeah.
Yeah, but I always try and set up my stand because I like to sit too, and I always like to set my stand up to where my where I think the deer is going to be is at like 9 o'clock. That's my ideal spot. You don't have to move hardly at all because I always hold my bow.
Yeah.
But that's the one thing I think that makes me the most deadly in the woods is my sight. I'll pick a deer out from 200 yards in the woods, and if I even see or hear something that I think might be a deer, I'm standing, and locked in. And it has happened, but very rarely do I have a deer sneak up on me that I'm like, oh shit, I couldn't even shoot you if I wanted to.
I had that with a stud 2 years ago.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah, it was.
This was my.
So
own...
it has happened.
Listen to this. I was standing, which I don't typically do. It was one of those days where it was so cold that I stood up. I had my forehead against the tree, using it to block the wind, like out this way. So you're talking sitting down. This would have been a perfect scenario, but because
you're a sitter, you set your shots up to be sitting down.
Yeah.
If it were me in your same situation, since I'm a stander, I set my shots up to be standing. So if I were leaning against the tree, it would have been an easy shot for me because that's just how I set up.
So I'm set up 180 degrees off of what optimal shooting is for that stand, but I set up to sit. It got too cold. I had to turn around, and I'm sitting there, and
You're standing there.
Sorry. And like I just like turned my forehead on the tree just a touch. And I don't wear a ball cap when it gets that cold. Like I obviously just have like a skull cap. And I just turn my head just a little bit, and a solid. I mean, the buck's easily over 20 inches wide, and he's at like 12 yards. And I'm like, you son of a bitch. My bow's on my right side. I'm looking at him on my left, and I'm like, this is awful.
Got to move a mile and a half to get your bow.
And he does like turn away from me and start walking away, which I'm like, okay, I can make the move now. I grabbed my bow. I brought it over to the other side, and by the time I had my bow drawn, he was, I think, like 35 yards, and it was too far for. I was just panicked, and just wasn't ethical. I didn't feel comfortable with the shot, and I, waited for him to continue walking and let it down. The buck did make it. We got pictures of him this year when we were checking cameras. He's wide. He's not very heavy, but he is stupid wide. So that was a lot of the reason why I try and sit as most as I can, because that one screwed me. But
But my scenario this was just my own stupidity. It was one of those mornings where it's like 24 degrees and there's a good frost on the ground, and it sounds like a herd of elephants when you're walking into the tree stand, like just loud as can be.
Yeah, the leaves are so crunchy.
Yeah.
Nothing can move. A slug can't move without making a crunch.
Yeah, and I'm sitting in my climber, and it's like what I like to call gray light. Like first light, everything's kind of got a gray haze to it, but it's, when you got a good chance at seeing deer. And I'm sitting there comfy as can be in my climber, and I'm like, I'm good. If something's coming, I'm going to hear it from like a mile away.
Yeah.
And so I'm just sitting there grinning ear to ear. I'm like, this is great. And next thing I know, I hear crunch, crunch, and I look, and there's this giant buck standing like 20 yards away from me. I'm like, shit.
That was not quite a mile.
No, I don't know how I think he snuck down the creek.
Or he could have been bedded, or...
I'm pretty sure if he was bedded 20 yards from me, he would.
No, I'm saying like he could have been bedded 65 yards out or something, and
either way, he got to 20 without you hearing.
Yeah, without
there's all
me
sorts of
hearing
things that could have happened. You could have been playing on your phone.
No, I don't use my phone. I don't use my phone when I deer hunt, but mainly because if I pull my phone out in the cold, it dies in like 2 seconds, which it's actually pretty cool because then I can be like, no, sorry, I can't text. I'm hunting.
Yeah,
phone will die, so it works out in my favor. But, so, yeah, I'm sitting there, crunch, crunch. It was a big buck. It was probably 125, 130-inch 10. Ended up getting hit by a car first day of gun season, so that kind of sucked. But, yeah, and I'm just sitting there staring at him. He has no idea I'm there, but the tree I was in, I was only like 10 feet off the ground. It's just where I had to be. And I know he wasn't looking at me, but he was kind of like gazing in my general direction, and I'm like, if I move, he's gonna going to see me no problem. Yeah. So I watched him, and then he got behind the tree, and I'm like, all right, now's my chance. And I tried to stand up, and he just kept walking straight away from me. I'm like, oh, man.
That hurts.
So, yeah, now I stand during gray light.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always ready.
So that basically, I guess, Tom and I have already – those are our stories for moving to Lock-Ons. Mm-hmm. Yours happened –
my Lock-On, if I was in a Lock-On, it would have had no difference. Because, I mean, my bow was hung up on the hook.
I'm talking your first story.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this second scenario, I was just chilling in the woods. Bow was on the hook. I think my feet might have been, like, out, had the footrest up, or, like, arms.
Getting real comfy.
Yeah.
No, but Frank's happened in Harrisburg was, I guess, like the turning point for you to finally to get sold on a Lock-On.
Yeah, I mean, what kind of got me, it wasn't even just that. It was, I used the Summit for quite a few years, and I really liked it because it was comfortable. I didn't like that it was kind of heavy. And then I switched to my XOP hand climber, and I loved how small it was.
Those probably cut your weight in almost half, because I think those climbers are probably like 15 pounds or somewhere right in there.
Yeah, so I loved how light it was, super packable. It didn't catch on shit when I was walking through the woods.
Yeah.
Because they are so short, it doesn't stick up above your head. So if your head clears it, your climber's clearing it.
Yeah, that's nice.
So I loved, it wasn't even the huntability of it, it was just the shape of it on my back.
Because those things pack flat. Too.
Yeah,
I mean, they're I think like 3 inches. Well, I mean, when you get the bars and everything together, it's probably 3 inches, but that's still very compact.
Yeah, so that was what kind of got me thinking towards the to the Lock-Ons, because they're basically the same shape. Mm-hmm. And I love climbers, and I liked how that walked through the woods. So it wasn't even from a hunting standpoint, it was just from a packability and sneaking through the woods standpoint of why I started thinking more towards the Lock-On, because I loved walking through the woods with that hand climber. But back to what we were saying before, you can't get into any tree, and you got to scout out your area beforehand or risk getting in the wrong tree. If you get into an area and you're like, oh, this is the spot, but you can't get into that tree with your climber.
Yeah, like try getting up a pine tree with a climber.
Yeah, it limits you a lot. So that was why it pushed me to look at the Lock-On more. And then Nick and I were in Harrisburg, and we were walking around in the archery hall and stopped at the Lone Wolf Custom Gear booth, and we're looking at the DS.5 because you had a 1.0 at the time.
Yeah.
And they were just coming out, like it was still like prototypes at Harrisburg that year for the DS.5. And as soon as I picked it up, I was like, yep, they just sold me. Like I am buying this as soon as it's available.
Yeah, it's under 6 pounds.
Yeah, and I have the mini sticks to go with it.
Which I think are
I think they're a pound and a half.
So you got 6 pounds. You're sub 12 pounds
with everything.
Yeah.
So
and it's very compact. I'll give them that.
Yeah. It doesn't stick up above your head. It's not super wide. Like the seat sticks off your back, maybe 8 inches.
If you want it to, you could let it lay it flat if you want.
Yeah, and I do lay mine flat because I don't. Yeah. I don't pack anything on it. So
yeah, I had the 0.5. I bought one also because I liked it. It ended up being too small for me, and I ended up selling it. One thing that's nice about the Lone Wolf stuff is you can pretty much sell it for retail.
Yeah, because people
want it and they can't keep up with production. So
yeah,
that was one plus with it. But it was just, I think what screwed me on it was the 18-inch seat height. It was just too short for my build.
Kind of had to get a running start to stand up.
That's exactly it. Because I hunted, I did quite a few sits with it last year, and I liked the size of it. Like the platform size was fine. The packability, I loved how almost felt non-existent on your back.
It's nice.
But sitting, because I'm a sitter, if I had to stand, it was too much movement for me because my knees were bent past 90.
Yeah.
But you're a little bit smaller than me.
And I stand.
And you stand.
I've just flipped the seat up and...
You pretty much lean against the seat, against the tree. Like it's... So, I mean, it was like the perfect combo for you.
Yeah, it was. Everything about that stand was money for me because even with the seat down, if I am sitting, it's plenty big enough for how I like to hunt. And then I love that you can flip the seat up, and then it's more than big enough to do anything you want. There's nothing in your way for any shots that you need to take. It's
just a very small, compact platform up in the tree that you can do all your shooting. I do like it, but like I said, ultimately, because I'm a sitter,
that particular stand.
It wasn't the 1.0 has a 20-inch seat height. Let me tell you, 2 inches makes a huge difference.
For sure.
So that was not
heard that before.
Yeah. But yeah, for real, 20 inches does make, or 2 inches makes a big difference in it.
And that's another thing that I think people overlook a lot. They don't, you sat in your stand probably 50 times before season figuring out how you want to sit in it.
I practice a lot more than probably most people do.
Just getting up the tree, figuring out, okay, this is what I have to do to get up or to move this way.
And just to give you an idea,
to pack the stand too.
Yeah, just to give you an idea on how much that couple inches makes a difference. So I picked up a Out on a Limb Hush stand they just came out with, and their platform size is the same as the DS.5, but it's got a 21-inch seat height.
Perfect.
Totally rockable.
Yeah.
Now that one is, I think, just over 8 pounds, which it's very lightweight.
Yeah.
But it's also $350. I'm gonna sell it, but I wanted to try it out, and it's one of those things mobile gear can be sold at pretty much retail.
The mobile hunting market is insane right now. Everybody's trying to get into it and try different things. So there's always stuff getting bought and sold on eBay.
My thought is it's the same weight as my DS.1. So I thought
1.0.
1.0. What did I say?
0.1.
Yeah, DS 1.0. Is that? Yeah, DS 1.0. Yeah.
We're there.
Anyways, so I figured, they're the same weight. It's a little bit smaller platform, but if it was comfortable, I'd rock it.
Yeah.
Ultimately, just wasn't, because I figured I could save some money if I sold the DeQuisto series stand and ran that, but it just wasn't quite up to par. I still like the packability of the 1.0.
Yeah.
And I think it's a little bit more comfortable. The seat on the Hush is smaller than the DS.5. It's very small.
Yeah.
It's only, I think, 6 inches deep. But anyways, so that's just another thing. But basically what got us all into the Lock-Ons was versatility of the trees, and then the new craze for mobile hunting has brought packability and lightweight to the forefront.
Yeah.
And I think that's, Tom's, you're rocking an XOP Vanish or something. And I traded my mini Lone Wolf sticks for some full size, because Tom likes the full size sticks. Because his only complaint was the packability of the XOP sticks. So I traded.
Yeah, they stick off quite a bit.
Yeah. So I traded my minis for full length Lone Wolf custom gear sticks because they pack so well. And Tom's gonna run that this year. And now Tom's profile is tiny.
Yeah.
Shape. You wouldn't think just packability changes how heavy it feels on your back. The further off your back, it's a leverage thing. Just packability makes a huge difference for your sticks. And there's all sorts of tricks. You play around with your stuff long enough.
Yeah, you definitely have to, when you first buy the stuff, it's not the way, from the factory that stuff lashes together isn't necessarily the best way you can put that stand together on your back. There are ways that you can make it a lot easier so that when you're climbing, you throw that stand and sticks on your back, put a stick on, climb up, and it's super easy to pull sticks off your back and throw it up. So it's not like you have to be up and down the tree. You're going up, obviously not as fast as a climber, but
you can go pretty quick.
Yeah, though. I can get up in the stand in a couple minutes with lashing 4 sticks in the stand. I'm going to show Tom this year, because Tom was doing the whole hang one stick, climb up, hang another stick, climb back down. I hang mine right off my belt, just with little
paracord loops around the Versa button, and that speeds up quite a bit. So,
yeah, I just leave them right on the stand and
yeah,
pull
that's
them
one
right
nice
off
thing
my
about
back.
the D'Acquisto stands is that they do have like those little
rubber.
grommets. So that's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tom. So I guess the only, and it's not even really a con, just the only comparison that made me interested with saddles was, as lightweight as some of the D'Acquisto stuff is, a saddle gets even more
you
lightweight.
can't compare it to a piece of fabric.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in your platform, some guys
They're
stand
tiny.
on steps if they really want to.
Yeah, they're like the size of your boot, basically.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're literally like John Eberhard. He stands on a ring of screw-in steps. So I mean, you're talking like nothing, essentially. He doesn't do any. He calls it like freelance hunting. All of his potential locations for the year are set before the season starts. So all he literally is walking in with his saddle and climbs up and hooks in. So I think after I mostly used my saddle this year.
Yeah, you used your saddle a ton.
Just because I wanted a fair assessment for myself, and all of us are advocates for mobile hunting. I think it increases your chances quite a bit, but I wanted to have a fair shake at a saddle so we could talk intelligently about it.
More intelligenter?
Yeah. It's got kind of a knowledge-y taste. And after a season with the saddle, I think it's a great tool for the arsenal. I think if you're going into a block of timber or property that you've never hunted before, say you're going out of state on a mobile hunt, you're trying a piece for the new time for the first time that you've never pre-scouted or anything, I think a saddle is honestly your best bet. Being that it's so small, and I've noticed there's certain trees with a full-size lock-on. If it's got like if it's like a common base tree, there's like 3 or 4 trees that kind of branch off together, it can be tight to get a lock-on in the right position. Sometimes you might have to, like, if you've got like 3 or 4 big trees like together, sometimes like a lock-on isn't going to fit in between those 2 trees. Now your DS.5 is a little different. It's a lot smaller. But if you're talking like you need to have this stand in just the right angle on this tree to set up for your best shot sitting down, I've noticed it can be a hinder in certain locations. So if you're totally unfamiliar with a piece of property, I think a saddle is really, really nice.
Just because it doesn't hinder you at all. You can put yourself into anything.
Yeah. And the biggest concern I hear from people that have never saddle hunted is missed shot opportunities with the saddle. And I truly don't believe that there's any difference in if you're using a harness and a lock-on versus a saddle. I don't think there's always going to be a certain shot that becomes difficult because of being tethered to the tree, but it's not it's easy to overcome. So basically the way you're in like a saddle, you can shoot from 12 o'clock to almost 5 o'clock without crossing that bridge. And like without even moving your feet. Like you can spinning at your waist, you can shoot past 6. Now with a quick turn of your feet, you can shoot all the way over to like 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then to cross that bridge, you have to cross over your bridge, which is what tethers you from your saddle to the tree for like 1 to 2.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're tethered to your tree with a harness,
you have the same issue.
You have the same issue, just at a different.
And it goes back to what we've talked about before, is setting up your stand in a manner that obviously you can never say exactly 100%. Where a deer is going to come from, but you usually have a pretty good idea. And
you got a heavy deer trail.
Yeah. You should always do your best to set up your shots where you would assume the deer are going to show up.
A little trick I like to do, I'm not typically deer hunting like the open timber. I like to be where it's thick. And a lot of the times when you're, in a good deer spot, there is places where you physically just can't shoot in that direction.
Yeah.
So I try and set my stand up in a position where that tight spot where you can't really get in the right position to shoot is maybe facing an apple tree that's 10 yards away that you can't shoot in that direction anyway.
Even if you were set up to shoot it, you couldn't.
Yeah.
Because it's just too thick. Yeah, that's a good point. You can do the same thing with a saddle.
Yeah.
The biggest, and this is just a me thing, I think I move more in a saddle. Yeah. And it's because you're not like sitting at like 90, you're more like leaning like you said you did in your climber. Mm-hmm. You're more leaning, and it's just one rope to your like
it's right easy around. To sway.
It's very easy to sway, and you don't even know you're doing it. Mm-hmm. Now, I can't say that I spooked anything this year. I didn't see that I spooked anything, but that doesn't mean that something off in the distance didn't see it. But I was in several close encounters with deer in my saddle, and it didn't become a problem. But I noticed more than once.
When you get bored, you swing a little.
I was swaying back and forth, and I'm like, and I don't do that sitting in a lock-on. Mm-hmm. So that's a me thing. I think it's easier to move because it's just a pivot point.
Yeah, just because of the way you're tethered.
Yeah, but I did an all-day sit in November in a saddle, and it was actually surprisingly very comfortable. Mm-hmm. And it's, I think, because the way the saddle I'm using is that Trophy Line Covert Light, and it's a pretty big, they said it has a lot of cup. Basically, it covers a lot of your butt and like up on your back. Yeah, a little bit. So it actually feels a lot like a climber seat. Mm-hmm. Without the big bars around you. Essentially, is the best way I can describe it. Is it's got the comfortability of a climber seat,
minus all the bars.
Yeah, so for that aspect, it was extremely comfortable, and I honestly felt more comfortable for an all-day sit in the saddle than I did my lock-on, just because being a sitter, my butt gets sore on all-day sits.
Yeah.
But I noticed, like, if you're in a lock-on and your butt gets sore, you just stand up and you don't move nearly as much as, like, if I get bored in a saddle, I just literally would just start to sway back and forth a little bit. Other than that, like, I think the saddle's a good option. I think that there's certain trees I noticed. I think a lock-on's easier to set up than your saddle. There's a little bit more involved when it comes to setting up your saddle because, like, the angle of the platform makes a huge difference on your comfort. Your bridge height or your bridge length on the front of your saddle makes a huge difference. Your tether height makes a huge difference. Like, there's a lot of fiddle factor when it comes to saddles. Now, with enough practice like I do over the summertime, like I've already been in tree stands this year, just messing around different climbing methods and I like to screw around, and I like it to be crisp come October.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's a lot of fiddle factor when it comes to a saddle. What I did like about it is there was a couple food plots that I had last year that the saddle was really nice to get into because you can actually use the tree as a barrier, which you can do in a lock-on too. You just put it on the other side of the tree.
That's usually how I set up my shots.
So that's not really like a pro to it. It's more a pro to mobile hunting, and you can move the stand. Yeah. Because on food plots, I really like to have the tree in between me and the food plot because it's just a lot easier to hide. Yeah, it's easier to cover, and there's a lot of times sitting food plots, you're going to get a lot of action, which means there's going to be a lot of eyes. So I like to just, if there's an animal or something that I'm not planning on shooting in the food plot, I just step behind the tree, like in my saddle, just kind of sway out that way. And you're totally invisible to that deer. And I noticed, like, you can shoot right off the side of the tree. Like, I can draw back directly behind the tree and then just move over, which I almost did on a doe this year. And then we were tracking Tommy's doe. So as I was like getting ready to draw back on this thing, phone like buzzed for a text, and I'm like, what was that? And it like made me stop for a second, and then like got a phone call. I'm like, what the heck? And I like looked just real carefully. Like, I still had my bow hook or my release hooked to the string, and I just like, because I just have it in like a side pocket here, just like lifted the pocket a little bit and saw that it was Tom calling, and I'm like, I know he
had to have shot.
He had to have shot, and he's like, hey, I just shot a doe. And I'm like, well, I don't really feel like dealing with two deer tonight, so that she's lucky she got the pass. Now, if it was a buck, it would have been a different story.
Yeah, but it would have been tracking two deer.
But figure we'll just deal with the one doe. So I guess to conclude for me, I'm going to keep the saddle. I'm going to keep the lock-on. The lock-on is going to be my main stand I use. probably 85% of the time. If I'm going into an area that I haven't hunted before, I'll probably bring my saddle just because I don't mind, like, it's so much lighter, even though weight's not a huge factor because I've carried climbers. It's whatever. But I find myself willing to like go further without thinking about it being on my back. So
I definitely don't plan on getting rid of like my hand climber. I like having the option. I don't ever plan on using my Summit again. I loved it when I was using it, but I just think there are better options now. Like, I don't mind it in rifle season because I usually don't go as far. I usually sit in simpler spots during rifle season, and I want more comfort, and I like the shooting rail for rifle. But if we're talking specifically archery season, I like the hand climber just because it's small, packable. I can take it anywhere. But like you were saying, with going somewhere that you don't know exactly where you want to be, the majority of my hunts are going to be out of my Lock-On just because I can get into anything. Any tree that I want to go up, I know I can get into it.
Yeah.
Where with the climber, I can move it my hand climber, I mean, I can go anywhere with it, but I can't get into any specific tree without being a little unsafe.
Yeah, agreed.
Like, I can get into it, but there is a safer option, so you should probably take the safer one.
Yeah. So I guess it's the best thing I can say is you got to try them out.
Yeah, you definitely have to hunt in any situation.
And I don't think you can go wrong with a Lock-On or a saddle. I think the biggest factor for your success is going to be practice before the season. If you buy this thing and it comes out of the box September 29th and you go to take it out, 2 days later, October 1st, you're going to have a bad time if you haven't played with it yet.
Yeah. If the first time you go up into a tree is when you want to hunt, you're going to be pissed.
Yeah. So
because it definitely is something that you have to practice with and figure out how you like to get up the tree.
Yeah. If you're somebody that weight is your number one thing, you don't care about anything but it being as light as possible, then a saddle is 100% what you should go with. If you like, it really just depends on your hunting style. I don't think either the Lock-On or a saddle is a bad option. Even if you're hunting, like you say, you've got one farm that you hunt and it's loaded with oak trees, a climber might be just fine for you. Yeah. Like a hand climber, if you know that all the trees you're going to get into are easy climbing, then that's the most comfortable option. Yeah. But I did, before we close things out, I do want to run through just a few different options for products in each of them, because there's the price points for everything is so vast, and to an extent you get what you pay for, but I think there's a lot of high quality products. So like in the Lock-On game, or I guess we'll start with climbers. Your Summits are definitely your most comfortable stands. They're going to be under $300. I think they're right around $260 to $280, somewhere in there.
And they have so many different ones.
Yeah, they have the Goliath, which is like a monster for big dudes. The Viper, the Titan. There's all different models, but they're all sub 300. Yeah. And I think we're all in agreement they're probably the most comfortable stands on the market. Yeah.
Summit does make a great tree stand. Just because I said I don't want to use it anymore, it's still a great stand.
Yeah, for certain people's hunting style, it's perfect.
That's all I use in gun season.
Yeah. I guess right around the same price are the Xop Climbers. They're sit-and climbs. They're not as comfortable as Summits, but they're still pretty comfortable. Yeah. And they're just way more packable. Yeah. Like I said, they're right around the same price point. After that, you've got your Lone Wolf sit-and climbs, which they're essentially the same as Xop, but they're $360 a piece. I don't see any difference between Xop and Lone Wolf, unless if you're somebody that wants to spend the extra money for USA made products, then that Lone Wolf's your option, because Xops are made in China. So that's just a personal thing for you. Yeah.
But as far as, I think the quality is there with both of them. I haven't had any problems with any Xop products.
I guess Lone Wolf anodizes their platforms where Xop paints. It's not that big of a difference. It's whatever. You're saving probably $60-$70.
Yeah.
Which can be spent on other, it could be your hunting license for whatever. Like, so XOP I think is a great option. When it comes to Lock-Ons, we haven't really played much with anything but like cast or like the aluminum. We don't have any like expanded metal mobile stands.
No.
Like the Muddies or anything. So I can't speak on those. I know I've hunted out of Muddies, not in a mobile sense, but like we've got permanent stands that are Muddies, and the Millenniums, extremely comfortable stands, just a lot heavier.
Yeah.
But so your Lone Wolf, like portable tree stands, and Novix, they're the same company. They're right around, I think, $350 for a Lone Wolf, and I think like $290 for a Novix. Now the only difference there is Novix sells direct to consumer. Lone Wolf, that's how Novix is. It's the same company, but Novix is their way to sell direct to consumer at a lower price. Yeah. XOP for the same stand, just China made. The price drops considerably. I think they might even be, I think they're right around $250. So like almost, they're quite a bit cheaper.
Yeah.
That's actually what Tom runs, and I think their Easy Hang system is one of the big selling points for Tom. If you want to just briefly talk about that as a plus for the XOP.
Basically, there is a bracket with a strap on the back of it. You just strap the bracket to the tree, and it's got 3 different notches in the bracket, 3 different angles, and you just use each one depending on which angle the tree is. 'Cause, I mean, obviously not every tree grows straight up.
Yeah.
And basically, you just attach that bracket to the tree. What's that style of strap called?
Cam buckle.
Cam buckle strap. And you just slide on the back of the tree stand, like right behind the seat. There's like a
notch.
Basically, a notch that just slides
into the
right
channel.
down into the channel, and it.
Easy Hang.
Yeah. So basically, you slide it into the channel, and apparently, this isn't what you're supposed to do. I was just getting right in and hunting.
Yeah, you should be throwing another strap.
Yeah,
on it.
but what I was doing is,
You got
which
your
is
harness on,
not
so-
what you want to do, is what is it called? Camming it to the tree.
Yeah.
So I would do that, and then I just hunt. But what I'm going to start doing is now I'm going to cam it and then put a strap on the bottom.
Your stand.
Yeah, on the bottom of the stand. Little heads up, you definitely don't want to put the strap on before you cam your stand.
The bottom strap.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bottom strap does not go on before you cam it over. It puts too much pressure and can break stuff.
And basically, when you cam your stand, you kneel on the seat, and then with your toe, it's pretty scary the first time you do it.
Stand will drop 3 inches.
With your toe, you pick up the platform, and your stand will kind of slide down, and then you push the platform back down, and it bites into the tree like nobody's business.
Yeah. Right around the same price point as that Out on a Limb Hush stand there, like $350-ish. A little bit smaller. They're welded aluminum. It's not cast. It's not water jet. Like you said, it's welded aluminum, but it's not like expanded metal. It's their own unique spin on it. I like the stand. It's just not as good as what I have. So
yeah.
Then after that, you start getting into your high-end stuff, which is the Lone Wolf custom gear, and that's really nice stuff. That's at a $500 price point for just the stand. But I mean, the finish on them is really nice. The packability
is insane.
They're super lightweight. So they're really nice stands, but that's not in everybody's budget.
Yeah.
Above that, there is the Beast stand that's shipping now. That's at $625 per stand. And from what I've seen in pictures and stuff, it's actually a higher quality than the Lone Wolf. But it's just a different size platform. And you can go online and there's a whole bunch of just social media idiots.
And people review the shit out of this stuff.
Yeah, check them all out. There's a lot of controversy on who came up with the water jet stands first. I can go through it. I mean, that's a whole podcast in itself.
Whole nother story.
Yeah, but
Whole other can of worms.
Either way, both of them are extremely quality. Dan's a good guy. I've talked to him. Andre seems like a good dude. I've talked to him. So, I support who you want. Like I said, they're both top of the line stands. I don't think you would be disappointed with either of them. Both USA made products.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to the saddles, you got, that's the end of Lock-Ons really for mobile hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Saddles, Tethered's kind of the mainstream company for it. I have not used their platforms. Their saddles are nice, but I've not heard anything great about their platforms. Trophy Line is the original saddle hunting company. They were like back in the 90s. They went out and then came back with the saddle craze. Their platforms are really nice. They're actually made by Novix. They've got a lot of experience. I mean, Novix is run by Lone Wolf, so essentially Trophy Line's platforms are made by Lone Wolf, who's been making platforms since the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So they know their shit. They're really, really
and that's
solid.
the thing with like the whole mobile hunting industry. It's all kind of together. Like a lot of people
work for the bank works for me.
If so facto,
I'm your boss.
Yeah,
that's exactly it. It's all it. It literally like
everyone kind of works off of each other, and
like you had
a lot of companies are tied together through like an individual person. Or
like Andre started Lone Wolf.
Mm-hmm.
Dan Infault was working with Andre with Lone Wolf, who then branched off and did the Hunting Beast, who did the Beast Stand,
and Cody, his son, started working with XOP. So
it's
a lot of the same people that started the mobile hunting community
back in the 80s. Yeah, it's the same.
Yeah, it just
now.
branched off from there, and it's all of their buddies or kids.
Basically putting their own flavor on it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, see that, Tom?
Yeah,
in flavor.
Stupid.
So Lone Wolf Custom Gear has a platform. I do like their platform. It's pretty nice, but it's
for saddle hunting.
For saddle hunting, yeah. It's higher end, which little pro tip here. You can buy their saddle platform for like $279, or they now sell a DIY platform. It's the same saddle platform, just the platform, no beam, and it's unfinished, so there's no like coating on it or anything. For I think $79. So you buy that, and then you can call them. And I did this I wanted to figure this out for the listeners, really. You can order just a beam. Now, I messaged Andre about buying the beam. He sent me over to customer service. It's typically $125, but because I talked to Andre, they gave me, or were going to give me, a $25 discount. So now I have the beam and the platform for $180. Same $279 one, just without the finish.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to get into like that Lone Wolf Custom Gear, it's a bigger platform. You can piece it together for the same price as any other platforms out there.
Mm-hmm.
Trophy lines are like $190. The Phantom from from Tethered is like $190. Now XOP's got their own that they're coming out with this year, and I would imagine will be closer to the $150 mark.
Yeah, I would assume so.
Just because they're always a little bit cheaper, being China.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess in conclusion, you need to practice with any of them. I think with time and practice, you could get deadly with any of them. But definitely, I think we're all in agreement. Like, I think the Lock-Ons are probably our top
most used. Not necessarily the most versatile or the most comfortable, but they are the best of both.
They check off the most boxes, basically.
Yes, for sure.
So I think, 3 out of 3 here is Lock-On and whatever climbing apparatus you decide to use.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, Ben, thank you again for the pick on that topic. We're all, like I said, we all love the mobile hunting game, and
yeah, anytime we get a chance to talk about it, we're all about it.
Yeah, so that was a good. We've briefly talked about our setups and everything, but it was nice to actually 100%,
dive way in.
Yeah, break it way down. Get into the price points and stuff like that.
Why we have settled into where we
have. And like we have experience with each of them, so it's not like we're just the internet
following
says
the
this.
hunting craze.
Yeah.
We've been doing it for years and years and have tried and tested. Every setup.
I mean, we've been hunting like mobile since before some of these companies even came to the surface. So I mean, we've had our fair share of years of experience in it. I feel like we're totally unbiased. I've used so many different brands out there. I like that for the podcast purpose, to be able to just accurately speak on products that I've actually used. I've put in trees.
Yeah.
So hopefully that helps you guys out, specifically if you're looking to upgrade or start going mobile this year. So,
or if you're one of our Patreons, you could win one of these setups.
Yeah, you would, and you could just tell us like, hey, this is the setup I want. And then it's yours
for 17 cents a day.
Yeah, that's it.
Wild.
Literally anything we just talked about. Boom. So yeah, maybe you're going to be the next winner if you sign up, whoever you are. But with that, make sure you guys get your stands, get practicing, and get outside.